Alright guys, so here we are. We're literally on the freaking field. Look at that. Hospitality lounge. Boom. Okay, so I got a bit of a confession to make to you guys. Today's video was supposed to be a complete match day vlog. None of this was supposed to be done from the studio. But things happened today that completely changed my plans. A couple hours before the match was to kick off, I got an email from Milan saying, hey, when you reach here, let us know. I'm curious too. I'm like, okay, cool, I'll let you know. And then I get a second email from them saying, hey, the only reason we're asking is because when you get here, we want to take you on the field while the players warm up. Honestly, guys, when I made the decision to get this one-way ticket to Milan, I never thought that the first game here is going to be this memorable. But it doesn't even end there. When I got to my seat, a man walks in to sit right next to me, not a few seats down, not in front, right next to me. Daniele Massaro, a freaking Champions League winner, Serie A winner, comes and sits right next to me. At that point in time, I decided, you know what? When a man like him comes and sits right next to you, you scrap the match day vlog, you turn off the camera, and you turn on your ears. All I wanted to do in that moment was for the next 90 minutes, just soak in whatever information I could from him. I wanted to talk to him about what he thinks about the players, which players does he prefer. I'm not going to let you guys know about all the details because that's between him and I, but I just wanted to get all the information out of him. So I scrapped the match day vlog. So today's video is going to be 4 takeaways. We're going to talk about the performances from individual players today, and I'm also going to give you a little bit of a rundown throughout the video about my, an incredible time that I had today. But let's kick things off with the 4 takeaways from today's match. You guys know how this works. Green boxes for good performances, red boxes for bad ones. Now, before I give away my first green box, let's just acknowledge my freaking predictions. Now, I'm going to predict a very tight 1-0 win for Milan. The first match, Coppa Italia, against Bari, I predicted a 2-0 win and hit. Yesterday in the preview, I predicted a tight 1-0 win for Milan. Here we are. And one more thing, as I already talked about in Marco's Instagram post, I talked about how I believe this will be a season where Luka Modric is going to either match or exceed his goal contributions that he had in any of his seasons with Real Madrid. The number was 10. And at this point in time, 3 games in, he's already got 2 goal contributions. So I hit that 1-0 today, and we're also on the path to that Modric prediction. And I guess the first green box from today's game, it has to go out to Luka Modric. You gotta say, throughout the entirety of the match, the first half, I would say, was a little bit frustrating to watch because just not enough was being done. But even in that first half, the one player that you felt like could be the difference maker was Luka Modric. So all the criticism that, Milan was essentially taking at certain points from some fans about Modric's age, those frustrations have to be put to rest. This guy has now played multiple games with 90 minutes, and in the 2 games that he's played 90 minutes, he's scored and assisted a goal. Luka has been the difference maker for this team, and you have to say, even watching him on the field, having the vantage point where you're not just looking at what's on screen, and you can, just sort of watch him move around. He just never looked like he was necessarily getting that tired. I think there was one, maybe a counter-attacking opportunity that Milan got in the second half, and Luka was just really running for the ball, and at one point in time he gave up, and everybody around you kind of had that sense of, you know what, dude, just take it easy, you don't really need to run for that one. So you do acknowledge his age in that sense, but quite honestly, on the field while he's playing, you really can't tell that that's a 40-year-old man. And as I said in the preview last night, this is a player that just celebrated his 40th birthday, and he explicitly came out and told his teammates, the gift that I want this year is some trophies, and he himself would play a consequential role if Milan is to win any trophies this season. And from the first few games, you can say that he's arguably been Milan's best player. Leading from the front, even at his age, deserves a green box today. And a talking point for today's game, I guess naturally it has to be the injury to Maignan. It was frustrating to see because, everybody's focus was on one pitch at the side of the pitch, and then suddenly people just started pointing in Maignan's direction, and you're looking at him on the ground. And the moment I saw him do this, I don't even think the cameras actually caught that at that point in time. There was just this gasp as to, what happened now. And I think this is where we have to kind of acknowledge, certain things that were happening during the summer transfer window. Milan was considering moving on from Mike. I think part of the reason was that they potentially have a stalled negotiation on his contract. And there has been a history of injury. This is what we kind of talked about throughout I would say, the off season, is that last season was Mike's first season where he probably, I haven't checked the numbers, but I think he arguably played the most number of games last season than he has in any of his Milan seasons. And you could say that he was probably the most volatile in goal last time around. And the seasons before that, and now unfortunately even today, there have been times where we have seen this consistent flow of injuries. It's not something you can escape anymore. It is something that has to be sort of acknowledged now during his contract renewal negotiations. There are a lot of Milan fans that were showing their frustration that, that Milan was planning on moving on from him, maybe sell him to Chelsea. And they were unable to come up with the right number. Otherwise, he probably would have been sold in this mercato. And I think that frustration or that concern was reasonable. But when you see something like this happen today and you see the past few seasons, I don't know if you can necessarily blame the management for wanting to, possibly move on from him. A fully fit Maignan is a player that I absolutely want at Milan. But a player that isn't always completely reliable throughout the entirety of the season is a player that you have to ask some difficult questions about. I think the coach came out and said that for the match against Udinese, there's no chance that he's going to be there. So hopefully this is a short time on the sidelines, but definitely something that is a bit of a dark spot in today's win. And the second green box from today's match, I'm going to give this one to Alexis Saelemaekers. Love this guy, man. Absolutely love his hustle. This guy runs, he's becoming so much smarter. I'm almost at the risk of repeating some of the things that I said in the preview about him, but that's kind of what I was seeing on the field today. He does the hard work, he's industrious, he has such a high work rate, just like, a player like Pulisic, runs back and forth nonstop, and has developed that, I think, footballing IQ that is making him make the right calls. In that moment where he was dragging the ball into the box, the moment that Modrić did score that goal, he could have sort of rushed it and crossed the ball in. I think maybe an older Alexis may have been a bit prone to doing that, but this time around, he was not rushed. He's weighing out his options. And eventually he took an option. I think it was really almost like a nutmeg on one of the Bologna players to get the ball to Modrić, but it was absolutely the right call. And that wasn't the only chance that he created. The last time that I think Milan wore this yellow jersey was in the friendly against Liverpool. And you watch that goal, I think Okafor maybe scored that goal. The way that Alexis peeled away while Milan was on a counterattack and, the ball was spread out to him by Loftus-Cheek in that game against Liverpool, you find him even while you're watching the game live, he's constantly hugging the sideline, trying to stretch out the opposition's midfield or the defense and create those opportunities. And that's kind of what happened in that goal that Milan scored. And a quick shout out is going to go out to Milan's 3 center backs. Actually, I guess Milan's 4 center backs. Just the fact that they've picked up back-to-back clean sheets, we need this defense to tighten up. Clean sheets are always a good thing. Clean sheets are the way that you really make your way up the table. And for them to pick up 2 clean sheets in a row, one away, one at home, I think they deserve credit for that. I think Tomori today at one point in time had a crucial interception that he made. At certain points of time, you could feel like, Bologna, who was a very attacking team, you'd be a little bit surprised to see the kind of performance that they put in, how Milan actually shut them down, because they're a fairly attacking side, in the league. And some of the chances that they were creating, for Tomori to read those situations, cut those passing lanes, or actually, make outright interceptions, stopping a really good pass from their player into the box, that one moment was crucial. And I think Tomori was great. Gabbia was that leader. He wore the captain's armband after Maignan went off. He came out and said that, for me to wear the captain's armband, I don't actually like it because that means that both Maignan and Leao are not on the field. And I guess maybe he's right, but it's nice to see that a, Milan youth product, again, one who went away, went to Villarreal, got the experience outside, came back and is helping out the team and is now actually wearing the captain's armband. That's exactly what you want to see. Pavlovic as well, to me, I think, for whatever reason, amongst these 3 center backs, Pavlovic on an attacking side just looks really strong. He created a really good opportunity in the first half. I think he did pick up a muscle strain. For that reason, he was taken off at halftime. And De Winter was also relatively solid, I think, at one point in time at the end. I don't know what he was trying to do. This was probably during injury time where he just started attacking Milan's own goal. He started just running back with the ball, surrounded by a bunch of Bologna players. Eventually went out for a throw-in, but I think his performance was also fairly reliable. At least it was decent enough to give the entire backline a shout-out today. And the next takeaway is going to be a green box. The last one is going to be a red box, but the green box for now is going to be for Christian Pulisic. No question about it. If you're at the game and you're watching the first 45 minutes and you watch the second 45 minutes, especially you watch when Pulisic steps onto the field, completely different attacking front line for Milan. The kind of quality, the kind of chances that were being created, I think this team really misses both Leao and Pulisic. When they're not on the field, a lot of that creativity, unfortunately, the creativity is actually coming from Modrić. The penetrating runs forward, they're coming from players like Loftus-Cheek, and maybe even so from the wing backs. Even Rabiot actually was really good today. But once you saw Christian step onto the field, that weaving past defenders, creating opportunities. I think there was a chance that he created for Santi Gimenez that we're going to discuss Gimenez in a bit, but Gimenez should have scored that. And as I talked about in the preview as well, there were some concerns. A lot of you guys have been messaging me on Twitter and on Instagram talking about why is Allegri leaving Pulisic on the bench. And I kind of covered it in the preview as well. I'll just touch up on it quickly here. I think mostly the reason is he's just managing his minutes. I don't think there's a relegation of Christian onto the bench. Christian was careful about managing his minutes during the summer. He did not want to play in certain tournaments, got a little bit of backlash for that. But as you saw during the preseason, I think a couple games in, got an injury. And I think that's exactly what he's trying to dodge. And I think at this point in time, the club is also trying to avoid any type of a relapse in the sense that, you know, he did play for Team USA during the international break, played consistent minutes for them. As I said before, the jet lag, the time difference, the travel, I think all of those things played a role, and that's why he was left on the bench to start off with. And when the coach realized that his quality was needed, he stepped on and he put in a good shift, a shift worthy of a green box. But then there's the final takeaway. That's going to have to be a red box. No surprises here. Goes out to Santi Gimenez. Look, man, when your spot in the club has been under question, you don't miss some of the chances that he missed today. I gotta say, I talked to a lot of people today, you know, just having general chats about the team and the future and what this season's probably going to look like. And I can tell you, there's a bit of a doubt in the quality of Santi Gimenez. I don't think it's a coincidence that the club was, you know, very openly. This is not even a surprise. It's not breaking news. The sporting director himself came out and said, hey, you know what? We're trying to facilitate a loan move, a loan swap between him and Artem Dovbyk of Roma. And I think what we've seen from Gimenez in the last two games has been a bit of kind of proving that point. Some of the chances that he missed today, especially when you're on a mission to prove yourself, you just don't. When you are in a 1v1 situation with the goalkeeper in that point, sort of a circumstance, you gotta bury that man. Irrespective of good press, bad press, you gotta take that chance. At least get a shot off. And I'm not even somebody who doesn't believe in his skill set. I think Gimenez has delivered in the past. He's scored goals. He's scored Champions League goals against top teams. So obviously he can score. And obviously he may have a bit of a confidence block right now. But I'm just a little bit afraid that we cannot keep using the explanation that, his confidence has been impacted by those comments for too long. That's my only concern. But I think with Santi, the benefit is that there's no other number 9. He's the only one, so he's very likely going to be playing fairly consistently. And I think having that freedom, that no matter what you're very likely going to be starting, you got to take that. You got to capitalize on it. You got to firm up your place once players like Leao come back and Nkunku becomes, fitter. You should still be the first man on the team sheet in attack because you take the chances that you were given today. So unfortunately, back-to-back games, Gimenez has found himself in a red box, but unfortunately, the performance is just not been good enough. So there you have it, Milanisti. Those are the 4 takeaways from today's match. A massive shout out once again to AC Milan. I gotta be honest, I have to put this out there. The one thing that I've noticed amongst all the people that I've met at Milan in the last maybe 3 days of even being in the city, the humility. You got the nicest people that work at this club, man. And the way that they have welcomed me, I'm going to be forever grateful for this. A huge shout out to Daniele Massaro, Milan legend, man. This guy's won, 4 Champions League final appearances, 2 Champions League trophies, 4 or 5 Serie A trophies. This is a Milan legend and was the nicest person to sit next to and learn about football and watch the game with him. Moving forward, there's obviously going to be a lot of content coming out of the channel. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter at FootballKush. I put out a few, live updates from the field today as well. And as always from my side, Forza Milan. Grazie mille. Ciao tutti. The issue was money. A generational goalkeeper saw his nickname amongst Milan fans change from Gigio to Donnarumma. And to remind him of their dislike towards him, Milan fans at the San Siro showered the Italian with fake dollars in his first match back at their stadium.